Welcome aboard to our last passenger. I'm about to share a story with you, one that has no name, not yet at least. Its title is a secret, a key that unlocks the full picture. So, stay tuned until the very end, and you'll be the first to know. Have a fun ride. Carlo arrived in the village with a simple goal: to escape the noise of Manila and enjoy the quiet festivities of the fiesta. He found himself drawn to the plaza, filled with his familiar faces from his childhood. Food vendors, music, and the laughter of children, but it was too crowded, too loud for his liking. He needed peace, a place to catch his breath and find solitude. That's when he spotted a pottery shop with a vibe so different from the rest. The quaint little shop stood in a corner of the village, its warm wooden walls inviting him inside with the soft scent of clay in the air. He stepped in, and there she was, Elena, sitting gracefully behind the counter, shaping clay with her delicate hands. Her beauty was striking, skin as white as porcelain, something almost unreal because someone living in the countryside normally has moreno skin. The way her dark eyes held his gaze, as if she could see through him, made Carlo pause.
Magandang araw, you're far from the fiesta, aren't you?
She said, her voice like velvet.
Carlo, used to getting attention and giving it in return, smiled.
I'm Carlo. I needed a break from all the noise. This place is peaceful,
he said, his eyes never leaving hers. Elena tilted her head, a faint smile on her lips.
Peace is rare these days. What brings you here?
The question lingered. But Carlo found himself drawn to her energy, her presence.
Just looking for something different. Something real.
Day by day, over the next few days, Carlo found himself returning to Elena's pottery shop. Each visit felt more natural. Almost like a pull he couldn't resist, she would always greet him with that enigmatic smile, and though their conversations were light, there was an underlying connection that Carlo couldn't deny. The attraction between them grew, subtle yet undeniable. Elena would sometimes meet him outside the shop, where the warm afternoon sun would kiss her porcelain skin. She wore simple dresses, but there was something about the way she moved. Her legs, long and graceful, and the way she occasionally stretched them while sitting, that made Carlo's heart race. Her body, though always composed, seemed to stir something in him, a desire he couldn't place. One afternoon, as he visited to purchase a small vase, Elena stepped up to him to hand him the piece. She leaned just a little too close. He could feel the heat of her body, the faint fragrance of her skin, and in that instant, his mind went blank with desire as she handed him the vase. Her hand brushed against his chest.
Be careful, things are fragile.
Elena murmured, a playful glint in her eyes. Carlo swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. I'll be careful, he said, his voice a little rougher than he intended. He didn't know why he felt this way, but it was as if she had cast a spell on him. The next day, Carlo extended his stay for an extra 3 days, something he hadn't planned. He had to admit it, it wasn't the fiesta that kept him there anymore, it was Elena. As the days passed, Carlo and Elena grew closer. She would often show him around the village, guiding him to places he would never have found on his own. They shared quiet walks along the river, evenings in the cool breeze under the swaying palm trees, and long chatter about their lives. But as Carlo grew more enchanted by her, his lust began to take over. One evening, as they walked back toward Elena's shop, she took his arm, her fingers brushed against his skin, sending electric shivers down his spine. Tell me, she said in a soft voice.
Do you find this place to your liking? How about me?
Carlo looked down at her, his eyes dark with desire. I do, he said, stepping a little closer, more than you know. His words hung in the air between them like an invitation. Elena smiled but didn't step away, her body was close to his now, and every breath he took seemed to draw him further into her spell.
I'm glad. It's not often I find someone who stays.
The subtle compliment made Carlo's chest tighten. And for a moment, he saw her in a new light, not just as a beautiful woman, but as someone who held something deeper, something hidden. That night, they spent more time together. This time inside the pottery shop, Elena showed him how to shape clay, her fingers gliding over the surface with such precision and grace that Carlo couldn't help but admire her. There was something mesmerizing about the way she worked, and the intimacy of the moment only deepened his attraction. But as they worked side by side, their hands occasionally brushed, and each time, Carlo could feel a powerful current passing through him. By the time they finished, it was late, and Elena offered to walk him back to his inn. As they stood on the porch, Carlo hesitated.
Elena,
Yes?
would you go out with me tomorrow? I'd like to spend more time with you.
I'd like that too, Carlo.
It felt like a promise, one that stirred something deeper within him. His desire for her, however, was not just sexual anymore. He wanted her in every way. A connection that went beyond the physical. Elena had become the center of his world in a matter of days, and he didn't want to leave her. After a few more days, their connection deepened. Carlo, now fully enchanted by Elena's charm, extended his stay once again. This time, he was no longer just in the village for the fiesta, but for her. Yet, there was something about Elena that made him uneasy, a darkness that lingered behind her beauty. One evening, Elena invited him for a walk, and this time, the path led them farther away from the village than ever before. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and as they walked, Carlo could feel the tension between them building. Elena was quieter tonight, more mysterious. When they reached the outskirts of the village, she led him to an abandoned nipa hut at the edge of a vast rice field. The hut seemed out of place, its thatched roof sagging and the walls weathered by time.
What is this place?
A place where things can happen.
Her voice now low and almost cracking, she closed the door behind them. Inside, the moonlight sipped through the cracks in the bamboo walls. Casting long, twisting shadows across the floor, Elena moved closer to Carlo. Her body pressed against his, and for the first time, he realized how much he wanted her. He leaned in to kiss her, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. The tension between them building to an undeniable peak. But just as their lips met, something shifted in the air. A coldness, an emptiness that pulled him out of the moment. As they kissed, something felt wrong. The warmth he once felt from her seemed to fade. Replaced by an unnatural chill, he pulled back, confused and uneasy.
Elena, what's happening?
You wanted something real, Carlo, something deep, but you didn't understand the cost.
Before Carlo could react, the atmosphere in the room shifted violently. Shadows twisted, and Elena's form flickered, revealing something more ancient, more terrifying than he had ever imagined. The beautiful woman he had fallen for was no longer there. She has transformed into an old woman, with mushrooms and fungi on her arms, and roots entangle her feet. Her eyes were pitch black, and in her mouth, vines started coming out, rushing towards Carlo. Carlo's blood ran cold as the truth hit him. He had been nothing more than a pawn in Elena's twisted game of revenge. The fear surged through him, and with a strength he didn't know he had. He ran, sprinting out, even almost destroying the door, the sound of Elena's laugh echoing in his ears. Carlo didn't dare to look back. The once beautiful village that had seemed so peaceful now felt like a trap, and all he wanted was to escape. As he fled, he could still hear Elena's voice, soft, cold, and mocking, until it finally faded into the distance. His vacation had started as a break from the pressures of city life, but now it felt like a nightmare from which he could never escape. The end. If you liked this story, please consider giving a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget the bell icon. See you on your next trip.